The Trinari watched the stars like monks, silent, reverent, patient. For millennia, they waited for the grand silence. The great hush. They believed the universe would one day still its breath and speak only to them. They built temples on moons and tuned instruments of dark matter to detect the faintest whispers in cosmic radiation. They memorized the lullabies of neutron stars and called black hole echoes divine scripture. They believed stillness was purity, noise, chaos, life, a blemish. Then the humans came. They didn't arrive in quiet cloaks or on prayer winds. They came with brass bands blaring, hulls painted in neon, and a shuttle that announced itself with a carnival horn. "We bring greetings," shouted Captain Isla Zhao, standing atop a hover dais, juggling oranges with her co-pilot in zero-G. "And cake. Lots of cake." The Trinari delegation, draped in robes that shimmered with encoded silence, recoiled. One priest-like observer, until whispered to the others, they blasphemed the stillness. But it was too late. The humans had already pitched tents on the observation ridge of Eleron 5, the Trinari's holiest moon. Within hours, strings of paper lanterns blinked in cheerful defiance of the somber stars above. Isla played her accordion beneath a neutron aurora. Children from the human expedition danced under the moons. They painted faces. They handed out fizzy drinks that made the Trinari's mouth sparkle involuntarily. And they laughed. So loudly. Entil stood motionless before the display, his hands folded, trying to decipher it. He couldn't understand why they moved with such reckless energy, why they filled silence with stories, songs, joy. "Do you not fear the void?" he asked one of the humans, a young boy named Mateo, who wore glowing gloves and spun light rings for fun. Mateo blinked. "Why would I fear it? It's our dance floor." Entil stepped back as if struck. They built an amphitheater from synth wood and starlight. Every night, the humans performed. Poetry slams in 20 languages. Flamenco fused with Martian bass thumps. Improvised comedy with oxygen masks. The Trinari at first tried to ignore it. But silence no longer soothed them as it had. The beat, once irritating, began to resonate. Young acolytes snuck out to watch. A few brought back instruments of their own, bone flutes and wind chimes tuned to ancient planetary hums. Isla welcomed them. "Every festival grows when new voices join," she said, wrapping a garland of solar-reactive fabric around a stunned novice. The Council of Echoes was enraged. They pollute our sacred observances. But they couldn't deny the shift. Meditation circles had grown smaller. Laughter echoed in formerly hallowed halls. Even the stars seemed to twinkle brighter. "Joy is a contagion," one elder muttered bitterly. They summoned Isla Zhao. In the great stillness chamber, surrounded by crystalline walls that recorded sound as scars, she stood alone before the council. "You must leave," the High Listener demanded. "Your music threatens our purpose." Isla tilted her head. "What purpose is that?" "To hear the final silence. The moment when all creation breathes its last." Isla blinked. "Why would you want to wait for death?" "It is not death. It is transcendence." She stepped forward. "I've seen stars born from collapsing dust. Oceans boil into clouds. And people who thought they had nothing to live for learned to sing again. That's transcendence. Noise is fleeting. The void is eternal." "No," she said gently. "The void was eternal. But now we're here." They tried to erase the recordings of her words. But the echoes remained. So did the festivals. They spread. First to the neighboring moons, then to the orbital monasteries, then to Trinari homeworlds themselves. The humans hosted a festival of first footsteps, commemorating every species that had stepped out into the stars. The Trinari came cloaked in habit, but left with flower crowns and popcorn. Entil began to write music. Not to mirror the stars' silence, but to answer it. He composed a piece called Echoes in Color. When it played, even the most ancient Trinari wept. The council tried again to restore order. But order no longer held dominion. Something else had taken root, messy, jubilant, defiant. Children spun beneath binary suns, shouting lyrics written that morning. Grandparents played in zero-G bounce tents. Diplomats debated policy while sharing honey sticks and dancing barefoot in dust. The silence did not vanish. It simply became the background, and humanity's joy became the melody. The final act of the Festival of Spirals, held on the orbiting observatory Torin VE, featured both species. The Trinari sang harmonic chants older than fire, and the humans layered them with drums, laughter, and even a kazoo solo that brought the house down. Entil stood beside Isla Zhao at the end. He looked out at his people, no longer bound by reverence, but dancing. smiling, living. You have changed us, he whispered. Isla shook her head. You changed yourselves. We just brought the invitation. The Trinari had waited eons for the silence to speak. But when humans arrived, they showed them something better. A universe that sang. A cosmos that didn't end in a hush, but in a celebration.